The grenade left my hand before I understood what Sergeant Kowalski had done to it. 3 seconds, that's all we had. Most men count to 4, maybe 5 before they throw. Kowalski taught us to count to 2. On Peleliu, in the coral ridges where the Japanese dug bunkers so deep you couldn't burn them out, that 1 second difference meant everything. I watched that grenade disappear into the slot, a black mouth cut into white rock, 8 inches wide, a foot tall, carved by men who knew we were coming, and I remember thinking it wouldn't be enough. We'd thrown dozens already. They always threw them back. But this time, there was no throwback, just a thump that shook the coral under my boots, and then silence. Terrible, complete silence. That trick saved my entire squad. But it came from watching men die first, and I still don't know if I should be grateful or ashamed. I need to tell you about Peleliu. Most people have never heard of it. It's a speck in the Pacific, 6 miles long, 2 miles wide, coral and volcanic rock in the Palau Islands. We hit that beach on September 15th, 1944. I was 19 years old, rifleman in K Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. They told us it would take 3 days. Light resistance. The Japanese were finished, demoralized, ready to quit. They were wrong about every word of it. General MacArthur wanted Peleliu secured before he pushed into the Philippines. They told us we were protecting his flank, making sure his landing in the Philippines went smooth. We were 19 years old and expendable. That's what securing the flank actually meant. So they sent us, the 1st Marine Division. We'd been at Guadalcanal, at Cape Gloucester. We thought we knew what to expect. We were wrong about that, too. The landing was chaos from the start. Our Amtrak ground through the surf at 0832 hours, ramp dropped, and we poured out into a landscape that didn't look real. The coral was white, sharp as razors, jagged enough to cut through boot leather. The heat hit you like a physical thing, 120 degrees in full gear. You were soaking wet before you gone 10 yards, and it wasn't from the ocean. Mortars were already falling, plumes of coral dust and smoke rising all along the beach. Men were screaming for corpsmen before we'd even reached the tree line. The first few hours felt almost manageable. We pushed inland, took some sniper fire, kept moving. The island looked small from the ships. Up close, it was different. The ridges rose ahead of us. They called them the Umur Brogal Mountains, though that's a generous word for what they were. From a distance, they looked like low hills covered in scrub and palm trees. Up close, you realized the Japanese had turned them into something else, a fortress. The coral had been carved out, hollowed, reinforced with concrete and steel, pillboxes with interlocking fields of fire, caves connected by tunnels that ran through the entire ridge system, spider holes so well concealed you could step on one and never know it until a grenade came up from underneath. They weren't fighting the way we'd been trained to expect. No wild charges, no screaming attacks, just patience, discipline. They'd let us come to them, then bleed us from positions we couldn't see until we were right on top of them. By the end of the first day, we'd lost a quarter of the company. By the end of the second day, we'd stopped counting. Let me tell you about the men I was with, because they matter to this story. Sergeant Kowalski was 32, which made him ancient by our standards. Most of us were 18, 19, 20. Kowalski was a Polish immigrant, built like a tank, spoke with an accent that got thicker when he was angry. He'd been at Guadalcanal, seen things he never talked about. His eyes were always bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in years. Maybe he hadn't. Even then, on the transport ship, I noticed Kowalski's hands. They were steady, rock steady. By the time we left Peleliu, they never stopped shaking. I didn't understand why until September 18th. Corporal Hayes was from Texas. Tall, rangy, always had a joke ready on the transport ship over. He kept us laughing when we were nervous. By the second day on Peleliu, he'd gone quiet. We all had. And Private Daniels, 22 years old, engaged to a girl named Sarah back in Pennsylvania. He wrote her letters every single night, no matter what. Even when we were pinned down, even when mortars were falling, he'd find some cover and scribble away by candlelight. I asked him once what he told her. He said, anything except the truth. On the morning of the third day, we got orders to take a cluster of bunkers on the northern slope of the ridge. 5 pillboxes, all carved into solid coral, reinforced with concrete. You couldn't see inside them, just narrow slots in the rock, maybe 8 inches wide, a foot tall. Big enough for a machine gun barrel. Big enough to throw a grenade through if you had the arm for it. We'd been trained for this at Camp Pendleton. Standard bunker assault. Half the squad lays down suppressing fire while the other half moves up. You get close, pull the pin on a grenade, count to 1 or 2, then throw. The M67 fuse burns for 4 to 5 seconds. That gives you time to throw it and get down before it detonates. That's what the manual said. That's what worked in training. Daniels volunteered for the first throw. He had a good arm, played baseball in high school. We laid down covering fire, and he sprinted forward, pulled the pin, and threw. It was a perfect toss. The grenade went right through the slot, disappeared into the darkness inside that bunker. We hit the deck, waited for the explosion. Then we heard something that stopped my heart, a metallic sound. Clinking. The grenade came back out through the slot. It landed in the coral 15 feet from Daniels. He tried to move. He almost made it. The blast caught him square, took both his legs below the knee, just took them. He went down screaming, and Hayes was already crawling toward him, rounds snapping overhead, coral chips flying everywhere. The corpsman came up and started working on him right there in the open. 2 other Marines had been close to the blast. One was dead instantly. The other died before we could get him back to the aid station. We had to pull back. The bunkers were still firing. Daniels was screaming for his mother, and all we could do was drag him to cover and let the corpsman work. He died that night. Bled out. Despite everything they tried, the last thing he said was her name, Sarah. I still have the letter he was writing that morning. It's still in my footlocker. I've never opened it. I don't know if it's better not knowing what he didn't get to finish. That night, 9 of us sat in a shell crater, 9 men left out of 13, and tried to figure out what to do. We couldn't take those bunkers using standard tactics. The Japanese had figured us out. They knew about the 4 to 5 second fuse. They'd wait, listen for the grenade to land, then throw it back before it detonated. It was a game to them, a sick, patient game, and they were winning. Kowalski sat there cleaning his rifle, not saying anything, just working the bolt, running the cleaning rod through the barrel, checking the action. I could tell he was thinking. Finally, he looked up at us. "I've got an idea," he said. "You're not going to like it." The next morning, we got the same orders. Take the bunkers. Command needed that position, and we were what was left to take it. Before we moved out, Kowalski gathered us together. He pulled out a grenade and held it up so we could all see it. "The Japs know our grenades take 4 to 5 seconds," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "That's how they're throwing them back, so we're going to take that time away from them." He explained it simply. "Pull the pin, hold the grenade, count. Let the fuse burn down to 1 or 2 seconds, then throw. The enemy won't have time to react, won't have time to throw it back. It'll detonate inside the bunker before they can touch it." Nobody said anything for a moment. Then Hayes spoke up. "Sarge, you miscount by even a second, and that thing goes off in your hand." Kowalski looked at him, looked at all of us. "So, is what we've been doing—" He didn't order anyone to try it. He said he'd go first. If it worked, we could decide for ourselves whether to do it. I remember thinking he was going to die. I was certain of it. There's a look men get right before they die. I'd seen it enough times by then, but Kowalski didn't have that look. He just looked tired, determined, like he'd already made peace with whatever happened next. We moved up to the same position where Daniels had died. The coral was still stained dark from his blood. We laid down suppressing fire. 6 Garands cracking as fast as we could work the bolts. Ejected shells pinging off the coral. The noise was unbelievable. I couldn't hear myself think. Couldn't see if we were hitting anything. That wasn't the point. The point was to keep their heads down. Kowalski moved forward. He was exposed, completely exposed, rounds snapping past him close enough to hear. He got within 20 feet of the bunker, pulled the pin on his grenade, and stopped. Just stopped. He was standing there with a live grenade in his hand, and I could see his lips moving, counting. 1 Mississippi. My heart was slamming against my ribs so hard I thought they'd crack. 2 Mississippi. His arm cocked back. Everything went slow. I could see the sweat running down his face, could see the veins standing out on his forearm, could see his fingers wrapped around that grenade. Then he threw. The grenade disappeared into the slot like it had been pulled in by a rope. Kowalski dove flat. The rest of us pressed ourselves into the coral, and I remember thinking, this is it. It's coming back out. It's going to kill him the same way it killed Daniels. We're going to watch another man die. 1 second later, the bunker exploded from the inside. The blast was muffled, contained by the concrete and coral, but you could feel it through the ground. A deep, hollow thump that shook everything. Smoke poured out of the slot. Thick black smoke. Then silence. We waited. 5 seconds. 10, 15, nothing. No movement from inside, no fire. Kowalski got up, covered in white coral dust like a ghost. He moved to the bunker entrance, weapon up. The rest of us followed. Inside were 3 Japanese soldiers. The grenade had gone off right in the middle of them. They never had a chance to react, never had time to throw it back. When Kowalski came back out, his hands were shaking. I'd never seen that before. His face was like stone, but his hands were trembling. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. We all understood what had just happened. He'd gambled his life on a 2-second count and won. Word spread through K Company by that afternoon. Kowalski's cooking grenades. Other squads started trying it. Some succeeded. Some lost fingers. A Marine from L Company miscounted, and the grenade detonated in his palm. Killed him before he hit the ground. But the officers didn't stop it. They couldn't. We were dying faster than they could replace us, and standard tactics had failed. The trick was dangerous, but it was less dangerous than what we'd been doing. My squad cleared 4 more bunkers that day using the technique, Every time someone had to volunteer to hold a grenade, every time the rest of us watched and prayed the count would be right. Every time it worked. The Japanese never adapted. By the time they realized what we were doing, it was too late. But there was always a cost on Peleliu. Always. Hayes tried it on the 5th bunker. He'd watched Kowalski do it 3 times. Thought he had it figured out. He pulled the pin and started counting. I was right next to him providing cover. I saw his lips moving. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. His arm started forward. The grenade went off in his hand. The blast took 3 fingers and most of his palm. He dropped like someone had cut his strings. Blood sprayed across the white coral, bright red against white. The corpsman was there instantly, wrapping the stump, jabbing morphine into Hayes's thigh. Hayes went into shock. His eyes rolled back, and his breathing went shallow. We carried him back, and I never saw him again. I wrote to him after the war. Once, he wrote back. Said he'd tried to hold his newborn son, but couldn't feel him through the scar tissue. Said sometimes he still counts to 2 in his sleep. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. The grenade that didn't go off. That night, Kowalski sat in our foxhole and stared at his hands. "How long do you think until I miscount?" he asked. Nobody answered. We all knew the math. You cooked 10 grenades, you rolled the dice 10 times. Eventually, the dice come up wrong. By the 5th day, we'd pushed deeper into the ridges. But the Japanese weren't giving up. They counterattacked at night. Screaming charges that came out of nowhere. During the day, they'd sit in their bunkers and wait. Patient, disciplined, bleeding us 1 man at a time. Our squad got rotated off the line, 6 men out of 13. Kowalski was put in for a Silver Star. He never got it. The paperwork was lost, or someone decided cooking grenades wasn't the kind of heroism they gave medals for. I don't know which. After 2 months, they finally pulled us off that island. We'd lost so many men, they brought in a fresh division to finish the job. We were used up, broken. The island kept grinding. Over 10,000 American casualties for an island that most historians now agree didn't matter. MacArthur took the Philippines without needing Peleliu secured. We bled for a footnote in the history books. K Company was sent to Pavuvu to rest. Some men went home. Some went to Okinawa and died there. Kowalski stayed in the Marines, fought on Okinawa, survived, went back to Chicago, and worked in a steel mill. I heard he never talked about Peleliu. Not once. I was discharged in early 1945. Malaria and combat fatigue. I was 20 years old and felt ancient. I went home to Ohio, got a job, got married, tried to build a normal life. But Peleliu never left. I still see those bunkers, the slots cut into white coral, the darkness inside. I still hear that grenade fuse burning down in Kowalski's hand, tick, 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 and the gamble that he'd throw it in time. I still smell the cordite and coral dust. Kowalski never got his medal. Hayes never got his hand back. Daniels never made it home to Sarah. And the island we bled for? Most people can't find it on a map. The history books moved on to Iwo Jima and Okinawa and the atomic bombs. Peleliu became a footnote. Maybe that's the way of things, but the men who were there, we remember. We remember that the rules didn't work, that the enemy was smarter and more patient than we expected, that sometimes survival meant doing things that terrified you, things that could kill you as easily as the enemy. Cooking off a grenade wasn't brave, it was desperate, born from watching your friends die and knowing you were next if something didn't change. I don't know if it was worth it. I don't know if Peleliu mattered. What I know is this: 11 men from my squad went into those ridges. 6 came out. The trick that saved us also scarred us. Kowalski's hand shook for the rest of his life. Hayes learned to write left-handed. I learned that 3 seconds can feel like forever when you're holding death in your palm. We did what we had to do. We survived. When the war ended and we came home, we carried Peleliu with us, not as a story of victory, as a memory of coral dust and blood and the mathematics of staying alive when everything is designed to kill you. I still see that grenade leaving my hand. I still count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And I still wonder if Kowalski knew he was teaching us to survive or teaching us to live with what survival cost. The rest is coral and silence and the memory of 3 seconds that changed everything.